We all know as four-wheel drivers that you just wouldn't go bush without a comprehensive snakebite kit and a first aid kit. I store mine up here on the back of the Effie. But last season we had a bit of an incident happen in our crew. Now, one of our crew had a suspected heart attack, and that really made me rethink, was I as well prepared as I could have been in going bush? And then roll that out to this season, and we're traveling to some of the most remote national parks, not just in Australia, but in the world. And these are the sort of places where often there are no airstrips to fly in the flying doctors. They're really remote to get to. The tanks on the helicopters may not even be big enough to get you there, so they might have to drive in. So you could be looking at a couple of days with a patient sitting there in the dirt and you having to look after them. So I rethought our whole policy in terms of remote area first aid, and I've beefed things up a little bit, and I want to show you what I've got. So for starters, we have our defibrillator. Just how compact these are far different to what you could buy 20, 30 years ago, and they are super compact, and they've got all the instructions. So you simply open that up, it kicks over automatically, and it walks you through the steps to kickstart someone's heart again. I mean, we carry jumper leads for our vehicles. What about jumper leads for humans? And because these have become far less expensive and far less cumbersome than what they were in the past, I genuinely see these as an option. Possibly not if you're 25, but if you're nudging 50 or your crew's nudging 60 or 70, you're saving lives here. Now, what about if something else happens in your crew? What if someone gets bitten by a snake? You know, these sort of things do happen reasonably regularly, and you want to monitor that patient. Well, what do they use in the hospitals? Some of the stuff is really not that expensive. So we've got this little guy here, cost me about 20 bucks, and that's a pulse oximeter. So you've got the pulse rate as well as the oxygen saturation rate in that patient's blood. Really important. And if you are on the satellite phone or the Starlink to a doctor, they're going to want that information. Likewise, you might want to carry one of these. You would have seen these plenty. Blood pressure monitor, very, very simple, very important in monitoring a patient. 40 bucks at your local chemist. You can even find them cheaper than that. So really not that expensive. Now, those are great for monitoring and obviously for kick-starting. Now, what about the sort of drugs that you should take along? Well, that's a tough one, because the drugs that you often really want, you might need to do a course for, and that's what people in our crew have done. So these little Penthrox inhalers, the green whistle as we call it, you do need a course to be able to use this. Now, this could provide someone with serious pain relief and potentially stop them from going into serious shock and then something worse happening. Likewise, an EpiPen, a very common form of first aid, and having it in your kit is simple. You can buy these over the counter as well. It may not be someone in your crew that gets stung and has an allergic reaction, could be another traveller, but having it on board, pretty cheap insurance. And likewise, I'd recommend a whole host of other things that you could put in your first aid kit. You've got your Hydrolyte here if someone gets dehydrated. Perhaps some calamine lotion for some stings and rashes and that sort of stuff. Now, having all these things on board, they're really not that cumbersome these days, but it does give you incredible peace of mind knowing that if the worst does happen, you can actually come out with some serious firepower to sort out the problem. So before you go on your next remote adventure, probably just have a little bit of a think about getting some of that gear to monitor the vital signs, and if needs be, give someone a kickstart if they need it.